Today we publish a white paper on immigration, a strategy absolutely central to my plan for change that will finally take back control of our borders. Between 2019 and 2023, net migration quadrupled until in 2023 it reached nearly 1 million. That's about the population of Birmingham, our second largest city. That's not control, it's chaos. A one-nation experiment in open borders.
Keir Starmer just got verbally bench-pressed into another realm, courtesy of ex-SAS juggernaut Ant Middleton. And trust me, this wasn't a fireside chat. Think tactical takedown meets public reckoning. Starmer's leadership got such a brutal inspection. His tie nearly claimed asylum. From limp leadership to political tumbleweed, Ant didn't hold back. What you're about to witness isn't critique, it's combat. Buckle up. This is the roast Starmer never trained for.
And then I got a phone call from my agency saying, Ant, your whole world's about to turn upside down in about 45 minutes to an hour. I said, what do you mean? And then that 45 minutes, an hour came around. The Sun, the Mirror, the Daily Mail, all had these in place, promptu sort of articles coming out. Ant Middleton's been fired by Channel 4. Ant Middleton, fired because of BLM tweet. Ant Middleton fired because of teen tweet, pandemic tweet. That's what it was all about, first of all.
Somewhere in the land of camo, cold showers and crawling through nettles just to prove a point, Ant Middleton, former Special Forces, full-time grit dispenser and part-time ego sledgehammer, took one look at Keir Starmer and said, nope, Britain's had enough. Leadership by puddle. Because if there's one thing Ant can't stand, it's politicians who make wet cardboard look assertive.
You get abused on a regular basis, and I see it on a regular basis, and it infuriates me.
And you have that split second of, am I going to act? Am I not going to act? And that delay is what people see.
Does politics influence the police force?
That's a really good question, because I'm just a lowly DS,
Yeah,
and CID.
listen, you can't hide here, Mark. Come on, I know you know more.
The media it makes the police and it breaks the police.
Yes, there's going to be bad apples. There always is in any organisation. Yes, we're going to make mistakes. We're only human.
People see that tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
They don't see everything else that's going on and the background behind it. So
Middleton rarely steps into the political ring unless it's to chokehold the concept of passive leadership. And when a guy like Starmer shows up flapping in the wind like a paper flag in a hurricane, you can practically see Ant's instincts kick in. Here's a man who's climbed mountains, crossed deserts, and stared down enemies, now watching a leader who couldn't stare down a softly worded policy proposal.
Number one, when I left the military, lost my identity, I got confused. When you have a nation of confused people, guess what happens after? Frustration. You get frustrated. Like the individual, very much like the individual. What happens after frustration? Anger. Anger, violence. Violence. What's happening on our streets right now? Violence. Or it teeters into civil unrest, which we want to avoid at all costs. But it's coming.
Let's be clear. Ant Middleton is basically a human sledgehammer wrapped in discipline and rage. He's wired to make life or death decisions in seconds. Starmer took 3 weeks and a risk assessment to move a rose on the Labour logo. One's forged in chaos, the other was carefully steeped in tepid consensus and filtered through 5 press officers. Ant lives in a world where hesitation gets you killed. Starmer lives in one where it gets you a think tank invitation. Ant leads with steel, scars, and instinct. Starmer leads with spreadsheets, disclaimers, and strategic pauses. Ant's idea of a campaign: a 20-mile run with a tree on his back. Starmer's idea of pressure: running out of oat milk before a BBC interview. Watching Middleton assess Starmer's leadership is like watching a lion judge a teacup poodle for its battle readiness.
I'm not going to avoid any taxes. I'm going to come away from the way that he runs the country. He's got no ambition, he's got no drive, and he's just off putting. I'm going to spend my time between Dubai and Spain. You know, I'm not going there to try and save money. I won't have an income coming from the UK, so you know I don't need to be here. And
Is it what
you know,
is
I
it
just- I
about?
just-
But Labour have only been in for I think 2 months. So what have they done so catastrophically wrong?
Well, you're talking about the next budget of what they're going to start making rises in the taxes, plus all these nonsense workers' rights they're coming out with, plus the pension, what they've robbed the old age people of their money. I mean, you know, he's the new Robin Hood. Starmer is robbing everybody to feed the migrants, and it's just not right and illegal.
Where Ant shouts people into greatness, Starmer gently nudges his party into focus groups. Ant says, adapt, overcome, dominate. Starmer says, we're reviewing potential frameworks for adapting. You can picture Ant in front of Starmer's career file, squinting like it's a riddle wrapped in beige. Every non-answer from Starmer. Another fuel source for Ant's deadlift. Let's talk philosophy. Ant believes in action. Decisive, unapologetic, brutal if necessary. Starmer believes in nuance, which is political code for we're still figuring out what not to say. Ant would storm a battlefield with a map drawn on his forearm. Starmer would draft a detailed report about why now isn't quite the right time to go outside. Imagine Ant leading Labour. Party conferences turn into military drills. Manifestos delivered by drone. Shadow cabinet meetings in bunkers heated only by disdain. People wouldn't question policies, they'd question their life choices. Compare that to Starmer, who leads like he's hosting a polite garden party for colleagues he's afraid to offend. He's not igniting a movement, he's massaging a memo.
Do you think we live in an island of strangers?
I think our country has benefited over very many years through generations from people coming to the UK, being part of our communities and working in our public services. But I also think that the level of migration needs to be controlled and managed, and it needs to come down.
So we are living in partial island of strangers then?
Well, I think that we're a country that I think has a
either we
really
are or
strong
we're
country.
not. Are we or are we not an island of strangers, do you think?
No, I think we're a country where everybody, I think, wants to see a strong country where we train people in the UK, but also to see net migration come down.
Let's talk delivery. Ant punches his message into your chest. Starmer delivers his through a PowerPoint, preferably an Arial font size 12 with a watermarked disclaimer. Starmer's caution would make a safety inspector seem reckless. Ant, he's out here lighting fires with his bare hands while Starmer's still checking if the fire exit is unlocked. Ant looks at Starmer like he's a tactical liability, like the human equivalent of a faulty compass. This isn't a clash, it's an ambush. Starmer walks into a boardroom. Ant walks into a battlefield. One checks meeting minutes. The other checks wind direction before charging the hill. Ant's vibe screams, take the hill. Starmer's vibe whispers, schedule a hill-related subcommittee. And no, this isn't about left or right. Ant couldn't care less where you sit politically, as long as you don't waste time dithering. Starmer could be handed a golden opportunity and still ask if it's been peer-reviewed. The man turns every bold moment into a homework assignment. If the roles were reversed, Middleton wouldn't even need a manifesto. He'd just point at a whiteboard, yell, and everyone would instinctively fall in line, or fall down. Starmer, on the other hand, needs a dozen consultants to decide how much passion is too much for a headline. The difference in energy is seismic. Starmer leads with caution. Ant leads with kinetic fury. Starmer convenes panels. Ant assembles missions. One builds advisory committees, the other builds soldiers. One commands respect, the other commands a team. There's no contest, just contrast.
If you'd have asked me, 12 months, 2 years ago perhaps, about Keir Starmer, remember I've been a Labour MP, I've met Keir a couple of times, you know, and I've chatted with him, etc. And I would have said 2 years ago, fairly decent guy, bit to the left for me, but not a bad guy. But now, having seen what's happened since he came to power, I have never been more disappointed. And for him to use the word principles, I think is rich coming from Keir Starmer. I mean, the hypocrisy from all of this. We had to listen to his sanctimonious rants about Boris Johnson for years. And as soon as he is in office or near to it, he's just taking freebies left, right and centre.
Let's get cinematic. Ant storms into Starmer's office like a tactical thunderclap. Starmer's world, one of soft lighting, weak coffee and laminated flowcharts, shudders. Ant scans the whiteboard, full of maybes and TBDs, and erases it with a glare. Picks up a Labour briefing note, sniffs it, calls it fuel, and uses it to start a fire with 3 pencils, a paperclip, and what's left of Starmer's resolve. Then comes the coup de grace. Man up. The PR team evacuates. HR drafts a 12-page apology. A junior aide passes out next to a stack of climate policy leaflets. Middleton doesn't care. He launches Starmer into the rawest form of politics. 24 hours on Twitter. No filters, no blocks. Just the unfiltered wrath of the British public. By the 6th hour, aides are begging for mercy. By the 10th, they're drafting legislation to ban memes. By the end, half have defected. The rest cry into their vegan lunchboxes.
Boris Johnson had more of a quite a Johnsonian response. He did quite a long post on X, but I think the most intriguing part of that was, to Keir is the orange ball chewing manacled gimp of Brussels.
The orange ball chewing?
Orange ball chewing manacled gimp of Brussels is how he described Keir Starmer. He said, most bizarrely of all, he's agreed that Britain will once again be paying countless millions of pounds into EU coffers for the privilege of becoming the non-voting punk of the EU Commission.
It's a great sentence. You've got to give it to him.
He's got away with words. He's got away with words.
Starmer tries to fight back, but his counterpunch is a politely worded disagreement that accidentally ends in agreeing with Ant. Somewhere between respectfully and reassessing, he concedes. The country burns, morale nosedives, and Starmer is still on hold with the optics team. The message is clear. Britain doesn't need more beige leadership with bullet-pointed apologies. It needs someone who makes decisions, not newsletters. At Middleton, he acts. Starmer, he delays. One carries the mission, the other carries a binder. In the survival mission that is British politics, Ant's halfway up a mountain with a spear. Starmer's still checking the weather app and wondering if the hike can be postponed. This isn't a debate, it's a demolition. Middleton doesn't just torch Starmer's style, he torches the entire model of safe, PR-wrapped leadership. No anger, no ideology, just one blistering truth. Real leaders lead. And in this comparison, Starmer's not just outmatched, he's outclassed, outpaced, and out of his depth. Ant brought action to a committee fight, and all Starmer had was a flowchart and a memo nobody will read.